Okay, today we're going to talk about another data type called the cell and structure. At the end of this lecture, you can explain what is the cell and structure data type. Also, you will understand when and how we use those data type. You can write a script using the cell and structure array, and you will see how to write the vectorization script when these new data types are involved. A cell array is a data type that can store the different types and size of the value. That's the cell. Do you notice that we store only the same data types in array in the previous model? For example, character vector, or numeric array. We store the value with the same type. Okay? Also the logical vector, right? Logical vector. Those all are stored the same type. Okay? We cannot store the doubles and then character value in the variable at the same time. Okay? But these cell array types facilitate the storing the various data types or even array in a cell. Okay? In the cell, you can put any value with the various data type. Also, you can put an array in the cell. Okay? So here, the cell array is also the array. So you can read and assign the value from array of the cell. Basically, cell array is also array, but this is the cell data type. Okay? So when do we use? Think about the situation where you read the data from the spreadsheet, which contain both the text and the number at the same time. You would assign those value to the one of the variable. It's a single variable that contained all this data type. Okay, but in that case, the variable that we learn cannot support because it only contained the one single data type. Make sense? Okay. The syntax used to create a cell to list the value in the curly bracket, curly brace. Okay, this is important. Curly brace instead of the bracket, square bracket. So for instance, in this example, you're assigned this character vector, numeric value, and numeric array, and each cell, and this become a 1/3 cell array. Okay. Okay, similar to the numeric case, in the numeric, when you initialize the numeric array, we use the zeros or ones, right? Or even in the the empty square bracket, right? I mean like this one, right? So similarly, in the cell, you can pre-allocate empty cell like this one, which means that this one is created the 4x2 cell array. Okay, in this case, you need to use this parenthesis. Okay, so curly bracket is used for define the cell array. This parenthesis is to initialize the cell array. This one is considered as zeros, the size, right, like this. The contents in the cell can be accessed, write and read by this is important, indexing with the curly bracket, curly brace. This is the most confusing part. Do not use this parenthesis to indexing the cell array value. Okay? But this parenthesis is a refer the set of the cell. Okay? This is the most confusing part. Okay? I write down this one. Okay? This one is to refer a cell, not indicate a value inside the cell. Okay? And curly brace is to read a value in a cell. Okay? This is a very important and very confusing part. Okay? I'll explain more details about it. So one way of the creating cell is directly putting this value inside of the curly brace. That is option 1. Okay? So this one is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1 by 7 cell array. So here, when you make a long statements on a multiple line, if your script is too long, you can break it down the multiple line using this, the 3 period. You can put the 3 period. It is the same way that you write this here. Okay. Then the MATLAB recognize the script in the next line is a part of the script in the previous line. Without this period, MATLAB recognize them the separate line, so you will see the syntax error. Or the other way to assign the value to the cell array is that you can make the 1 by 7 empty cell array first. This is the process to make a cell space to be ready for assigning the value. And then this is the way of the referring the value space in the cell at the first row and first column. And then you can store any types of the value in the cell. For instance, a character vector, numeric scalar, numeric array. Even you can store the cell data into the cell. Basically, cell can contain everything. Okay? So here, assigning the array, character vector, and numeric value. Okay? Again, this is the curly brace is to refer the value space inside the cell. However, you are indicating the cell itself. You need to use the parentheses. Okay? For example, I mentioned earlier, this is to make the 1 by 7 empty cell array, and then there are 7 cells. Okay? When you assign the value, for instance, like a Tolmin here, info, like a Tolmin, because we are referring the value space, you can directly put this value into this cell. But if you're referring the cell itself like this, you need to assign the cell type like this one. Okay? Make sense? So these are stored the same value, but this one is indicating the cell itself. This one is indicating the value space in the cell. Okay? I know this is very confusing, but you'll get used to it. So before our string data type was introduced in 2016, text should be stored in the cell as a form of a character vector. Why? In the one of the tutorial problems, we can store the multiple character vector in an array. However, in that case, the character vector should be the same length. So in order to store the different lengths of the character vector in an array, you need to use this set array. Therefore, in general, we use this set array type to store the text information. Okay. Here, CL info initialize with the 3x7 empty set array, and then indexing or referring the value space with the curly brace, and then assigning the value. Okay. Basically, in here, first row is indicating stored all this information. Second row stored this information. The third row is to store this information. Okay? Make sense? So now, how we can read the value of this one? That is class info. You need to use the curly brace 1 by 1 comma 7, because the 7th column and the first row. Okay. How about the first exam grade of the Noreen? Okay, that is CL info, second column, and then second row and the first row. And what is this one? This one is indicating this vector 117, right? To read the first value, you need to use this one, parenthesis. Okay, for instance, val is defined as this one. How to read this value? Val like that. In this case, we use the parentheses, right? So this is the same thing. This one is indicating the array. That's why to read the first value, you need to use the parentheses. Make sense? Okay. The way of the referring the reading the value is similar to the numeric array. The only difference is you need to use the curly braces. Okay. Here's the example of how to process data in the cell. Okay. Let's assume that you're reading and storing the spreadsheet data in the class info variable. In this case, in the 3 row, but we assume that it is, let's say, thousands of rows of the data. Okay. How can we find the Chalmers ID? Okay. In this case, we know that the Chalmers, the information in the first row, but we assume that the only information that we have is the Chalmers name, right? We need to read ID through this Chalmers name information. Okay. To do so, first you need to make a loop structure where the iterator is set to 1, 2 numbers of the row. Okay. And then read the individual name. Okay. This is what is this one? It's the name, Chalmers. And then you need to compare this string. I guess one of the tutorial problem is explained what is this one. You can use the is equal. I guess you already used is equal in the word find puzzle, right? So you can compare this two character vector. If yes, you're assigning the ID that is on the third column to the test ID and then break. Do you understand this logic? Okay. Basically, once you find the Chalmers, row index of the Chalmers information, and then find out the ID using this information in the third column. Okay. But basically, you need to know the ID in the third column. Okay? Make sense? Okay, the next question is what is the Noreen's first exam grade? Okay? This is the similar, right? You set the loop structure with the ranges 1 to the numbers of the row, and then read each name here. For the Noreen, you need to assign the class info, the first column. The first column is the quiz grade, right? Assigned to the test exam, and then reading the first value. Or in this case, you can use this syntax. Okay, and then break. Okay, so why we need the break here? So let's assume that this is, let's say, your class info variable, the numbers of the row of the class info is the 100,000. Okay, and then your Chalmers information is the first row. But if you run this without break, this loop structure is the repeated 100,000s, right? Although the Chalmers information is the first row. That's why we're break to make your script is more efficient. This is the most confusing part in the cell array type. Every time the students ask these questions, so what is the difference between the curly brace and the parentheses? That's why I'm repeating the many times. Parenthesis is to refer the set of the cell. You refer the cell themselves and assign the cell or the set array to the space. And also you need to assign the cell if you refer the cell using this parenthesis. Okay? On the other hand, curly brace is to refer the value space in a cell. You refer the space inside of the cell and assign value to the cell. Okay, remember that cell is a data type. Okay, that's why when you assign the cell as a data type, you need to use the parentheses. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. Okay, this is the script from the previous slide. Okay, but here you want to assign the multiple value at once. Okay, so in this case, what is this one? This one is a cell array. Okay, you're going to assign the cell array to the cell. In this case, you need to refer the cell array space. Okay, not the value space in the cell. Okay, that's why you're using this parenthesis. What it means is that this one is referring the first row of cell array. Okay, first row of the cell, I'll say. Okay, but in here, if you use this one, you will see the error. This one is a curly brace. Okay, makes sense. So if you see here, this is important. Class input, this one is a curly brace. You're referring the value inside of the cell. So what is the value inside? It's a character vector. That's why if you find out the types of this value, that is the character. Okay, but if you use the curly brace here, what is the data type? That is the cell. This is a very important to use this cell type. Okay, remember that cell is a data type. Okay, cell contained everything. Okay, but this is a parenthesis referring the cell. Curly braces is referring the value inside the cell. Okay, how to vectorize the cell array data. This is a very challenging topic. I'll say this is optional topic. Okay? Okay, this is the same problem. What is the Norris ID? In this case, the string compare, this is a built-in function, support the cell array data type. Okay, that's the important. Every built-in function, so the supporting input type is specified. But in this case, the string compare built-in function support the cell array. That's why in this case, what is this one? Class info, the first column, you're referring the cell data in the first column. In this case, each cells contain the character vector, right? So basically, this one is to find out to see if where is the Cholmin, where is the second character vector in you're the first input variable. Input cell data. That's why in this case, this give you the logical vector. The one is the location of the second value in the first array. That's why you will get this logical vector. And then if you use the find the built-in function, you can find the row index. This is the row index, right? Row index. So the ID can be read from this a curly brace, the first row and then third column. Okay. I want to point out that this one. So LG bag is like a logical vector. Okay. So basically find is find out the true location. So you don't have to write a script like this one, because the find the built-in function is itself is designed to find the one, so you don't have to to write the script. Okay, so this is another example. What's the name of the students whose ID is this one? Assigned to the name to the test name. Okay. But in this case, this is a very challenging syntax. What it means is this one is reading all the value at the third column. So this is cell array. Okay. I'll repeat this. If you use the curly brace, this one is reading all the value in the first third columns of this cell array. So basically, this one is the value itself. This is not a cell array data. So if you put this square bracket here, this will give you this numeric vector. Make sense? You just memorize this syntax. Okay. If you put the if you put the square bracket, this will give you the numeric array, because this part is to try to read all the value at the third column. Same functionalities can be replicated using the cell to math. This is the built-in function. So you can cell to math class info, then you can get the same the numeric vector. But in this case, you need to use this cell, not the parentheses, not the curly braces. Okay, now that the rest of the process is easy, right? This syntax is learned in the operators, the module, right? So find out the same ID, and then you can find the index, you can read the name value. Okay? Makes sense? This is a very challenging, but this is a very useful to process these types of the spreadsheet data stored in the cell data type, cell variable. Okay, good.